What's good, YouTube? This is Boxingwave. Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone had a great weekend. All right, before we get started, make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Also, smash the like button if you enjoy the content. Share the video on your social media platforms as well. All right, let's talk about this weekend. We're going to keep it strictly Anthony Joshua, Robert Helenius, and we're also going to talk about the Deontay Wilder fight, which we could be getting by December or January. All right. I want to apologize to you guys. I didn't do live commentary for Oscar Valdez and I guess Manuel Navarrete the other day. I'm sure you guys saw my post-fight review with my dad. We did actually watch the fight, but there was a terrible storm in New York, in northern New York, and it was knocking down trees. There was tornado warnings, and the power was kind of flickering, and it was in and out. So I didn't want to go live and then everything gets cut off. You know what I mean? I kind of just wanted to play it safe, and I just didn't want to go live. So I'm sorry that I saw a lot of you guys leaving comments waiting for me to get on, and I didn't get on. All right. So but check out the post-fight review. Me and my dad did watch the entire fight together, and if you didn't check out my post-fight review that me and him did, be sure to check that out. That's the last video. I think some of you guys, or a lot of you, were going back to my breakdown video, but wasn't going to my review of the fight. I don't know. I know YouTube and the notifications be bugging sometime, but just go to my most recent videos and you will see that my very last video was the post-fight review. All right, so Anthony Joshua for Robert Helenius. I was here live. You guys, a lot of you guys was here live with me, and we watched the fight together. You guys saw my reaction to it. And I want to talk about the fight before we get to the Wilder talk. All right. What I got out of the fight is I wasn't expecting AJ to stop Helenius earlier than Deontay Wilder. It just didn't make it wasn't realistic to me, simply because Wilder is a one-punch KO type of guy. Wilder has a lot of experience in fighting with Robert Helenius. I mean, Helenius he was the key sparring partner leading up to the Fury trilogy. Okay, so him and Malik Scott, Helenius, Wilder, Malik Scott, these guys were preparing for that fight. You know what I mean? Together. So it didn't really, I wasn't expecting anything more from AJ. You know, I knew it was going to take longer. I know AJ doesn't know how the way Robert Helenius fight. And not only that, but Helenius is also, he's a replacement opponent. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like he went into camp preparing for him. So I knew Joshua was going to take longer, but I didn't think it would take 7 rounds neither. You know, I said to you guys, I'm seeing, you know, within 4 type of, you know, I've seen a lot of you guys say round 7, 8, 9 even. I even seen a few of you said that was going to go the distance. All right, but I was expecting a KO from Joshua simply because I just didn't think Helenius was as durable as some of the most recent opponents that Joshua faced that went the distance with him. You know, Jermaine Franklin, I felt like Jermaine is more in his prime. And right now he's in better shape. Maybe Robert Helenius once upon a time, you might have considered him better. You know what I mean? But at this point in his career, you know, getting stopped multiple times and being older, you know, pushing 40, I wasn't really expecting, you know, him to be tougher than Franklin. Obviously, he was going to be tougher than Usyk, you know, or Andy Ruiz, you know, or even a Pulev, you know what I mean? So when I look at AJ's recent opponents, you know, I really wasn't expecting any more from Helenius. You know, he was a replacement fighter for Dillian White. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting much for White. You know, I expected Joshua to stop him again, probably earlier. I do think Dillian White is out of his prime. You know, he hasn't looked good to me since the Oscar Rivas fight. All right, so, yeah, you know, we got what we got. But as far as the fight, it was a good fight. You know, I mean, a good fight as far as it being somewhat competitive. Helenius did come to fight. It's not like he came to lay down. He had a fight a few days before the Joshua fight. But he was a good opponent. You want to fight, if you're going to fight Deontay Wilder next, you want to fight a guy that's tall, that's rangy, that's a decent counterpuncher. You want to get someone in there that you can prepare for a Wilder fight as a last replacement. I also brought up Gerald Washington. I brought up a few people that I thought was realistic, including Robert Helenius. You know what I mean? Simply because I was thinking of someone tall, someone rangy, you know what I mean? And someone that wasn't going to spoil you the Wilder fight. You know what I mean? I know guys was bringing up all these top fighters like Hergovich and, Bacoli and all of these guys. And I think Bacoli was probably the best out of, I think it should have been any more than Bacoli. I seen people say Frank Sanchez. Like, that's not realistic. You know what I mean? That's an actual real opponent that you have to go in a camp preparing for. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, we got what we got. Helenius didn't come to lay down. He gave him a decent fight. I liked Helenius for the most part. I thought Helenius did a good job landing the jab. So did Franklin. I did go back this morning and do a little bit of film study on both. I did watch some of the Wilder trilogy fights, Wilder Fury trilogy fights. I watched the highlight of the Helenius knockout with Wilder, simply because that was his last opponent. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to compare, even though we only got less than 3 minutes. You know what I mean? In that fight. So, I'm starting to think about hard on where I'm gonna go when it comes around. And, and my stance has changed throughout the years. Before, when they were both undefeated, there were times where I did pick Wilder. There was times where I did pick Joshua. A lot of it was momentum based. I think there was one specific time that I thought Wilder would beat Joshua, and I think that was right around when he beat Luis Ortiz. You know what I mean? And I think after the Andy Ruiz loss and the fights after, I think around then, that's when I started leaning towards Wilder when it comes to the actual fight. Now, before you guys get all emotional, because it was a guy that was trying to troll the other day. You guys remember it. If you guys know that, you guys know who, how I feel about these fights. For the new people, I'm not picking emotionally. I pick who I think is going to win the fight. You know what I mean? For the gamblers out there, if I'm going to put money on a fighter, whether I do it or not, I'm picking based on who I think is going to win the fight and not who I like better. You know what I mean? I've been more supporter over Joshua over the years because of just a lot of things outside of the ring, a lot of things that's been said between the both of them, and just the direction in their careers. I respect Joshua's career more because he was consistently fighting good people, whereas Wilder and Tyson Fury, I feel like there's a lot of gaps in the top-notch opposition that they face. And there's a lot of holes in between those good fights that they fought. Yeah, Ortiz was legit, to me. Luis Ortiz at the time was probably my second or third favorite heavyweight. And obviously Tyson Fury was good, but the timing was based on Tyson Fury coming back. And at the time, Fury was still undefeated. Yes, he was a top guy. He was the one that dethroned Klitschko at the time that Wilder fought him. There was a lot of unknowns there. He ended up being better than most of us thought he was going to be. If he was basing Fury on his 2 comeback fights, he really wasn't all that good. You know what I mean? But by the time he got to Wilder in the first fight and then the second and third, he was back in top form. You know what I mean? Now, I pick the fights based on what I see and not how I feel. And what I see is that I feel that Wilder is still closer to the way he always was in comparison to Joshua. Joshua has switched trainers a few times. Joshua was stopped by Andy Ruiz, but even losing to Usyk, which I I don't fault him for losing that fight that much because Usyk is a very talented fighter. He's a generational great. I just don't think AJ is quite the same. You know what I mean? And a lot of that is based on aggression. You know what I mean? I just think that he plays it too safe. And I think in certain fights he need to kind of bang. He does a lot of things right. And when I talk about like the fundamentals, you know what I mean, and being crafty and stuff, timing, good, you know, being safe and being defensive, I still think he's pretty good. But I think that mean version, that KO version of Anthony Joshua, I don't feel like he's there anymore. You know what I mean? When I watch him fight, you know, I was watching the Jermaine Franklin fight this morning. You know, I was watching some of that fight, and you know, I think there's two things. I think AJ takes a little bit too much time to get things going. You know, I think he fights a little too fearful. All right. He still gets the job done. Yes, obviously he's still winning all of these fights, and he just knocked out Helenius, which is good. But I think he overthinks too much. It could be anxiety. It could be PTSD from getting stopped. I think when it comes to PTSD, I think it comes when it comes to like throwing combinations. All right. I think the setups are still good. I think the jab was very good in the Franklin and the Helenius fight. His jab was on point for sure. You know, he was able to land the right hand. I actually think Joshua could have knocked out Helenius in the second round if he was just a little bit closer with that right hand. I think he could have at least dropped him in that second round, if not stopped him. It was on, he landed, it connected, but he didn't get that full, you know, it didn't land fully clean, you know, kind of grazed him a little bit. And I think that was a perfect shot. But it just took a little too long to keep things going. And I think that with the combinations, it seemed like he doesn't really want to tee off because he's worried about the counter in between the punches that Andy Ruiz landed in their fight. There's no version that I see of AJ where he just really went off. I think he did against Pulev because Pulev was badly hurt. Pulev kind of turned his back and everything towards him. But outside of that fight, I'm missing the combinations from AJ. And it could be him mentally. It could be preparation. You know, I don't know what Robert Garcia was training him to do. I don't know what, you know, Derrick James was actually training him to do. But the setups are good. The right hand is good. The left hook, the lead left hook is good. You know, he'll throw a combination here and there, but not in a way that he used to do. You know, I think before he was a beast, as in now he's a lot more conservative. And in certain fights, it was good to fight Andy Ruiz that way in a rematch. You know what I mean? He fought very smart, intelligent, because he really needed that win. And he had to play it safe. But I felt like now he fights in a way where he really needs to win in every fight. And yes, every fight is important for him and Fury and Deontay Wilder and Usyk and all these top guys. Every win is important because one loss is a huge setback. You know, look what happened to Joe Joyce recently. You know what I'm saying? Like, now he has to rematch the guy, and now Danny Dubois is getting a title shot before he does. So Joshua fights in a way where he has to be too cautious. And then sometimes when he gets hit, and this is the second thing I wanted to bring up earlier, sometimes when he gets hit, I don't know what it is. You know, I know it's not just me because I hear it a lot. But his body language and sometimes the way he reacts to getting hit, he doesn't seem like he want to be in there sometimes. You know, when a fight is rough and he's not dominating, I think he went so long with being dominant that when he took that first loss, right, his reaction to getting hit has changed. You know what I mean? Before he used to take more risk. And now when he gets hit and fight gets a little competitive, you know, his nose start getting bloody. You know, sometimes it feels like, I don't know. You know, I don't know if it's an anxiety. I don't know what it is. Like I said earlier, I don't know what it is. but he's definitely different. You know what I mean? And it's noticeable. And when it comes to fighting Deontay Wilder, you know, you're gonna have to be aggressive because we've only seen Wilder lose once, right? And we've seen him hurt by a Luis Ortiz that was able to hurt him and be aggressive too. But we've only seen Wilder lose once. And when you watch the Fury rematch or you watch the third fight, Fury kept at it. You know, he wouldn't land the right hand and then sit back off. No, he would come forward. He would lean on him. He would push him. He would land uppercuts on the inside. He was working. He was hitting body. He was hitting Wilder to the body. He was muscling him around. He was wrestling with him. He was being real physical. Whereas Joshua has become this boxer puncher, but he's become so defensive, you know, and he's not looking to follow up with the damage that he does. When he connects with a huge right hand, sometimes you want to see him follow up with the next shot and the next shot, but I think he's so concerned about the counter that he kind of backs off, you know what I mean? And then he starts over, you know what I mean? He makes a chest move and then he like kind of resets himself and it's like, okay, now we're starting a new game. Whereas, no, I hit you with a good shot and I'm going to beat you down until I knock you out. Look at the Dillian White fight, you know, when he had Dillian hurt, he had him hurt multiple times in the fight. But towards the end, it's just the way that he walked him down and beat him up. Even when you go to a Joseph Parker fight, right, which was not a good fight, you know, and I blame a lot of that on the referee. I think the referee just got a little too involved. All right. And I think every time there was a close range or they were tied up, I think the ref just jumped in, kind of doing that thing that not Stevie Willis, what's his name? Oh, I can't think of his name right now. It'll come up. Kenny Bayless. Always jumping in. He's not letting guys work on the inside. He jumps in right away and separates the fighters. You know, but I think even in that fight, it's just the fact that Joshua was stalking and really trying to get at Parker, who was moving a lot in that fight. You know what I mean? So when I saw the Helenius fight, you know, I just think it went longer, and then there was periods where there were dry spots, and you know, Helenius is waiting for the counter. You know what I mean? He's looking to land a counter. He's not really being that aggressive neither, and Joshua was waiting to counter too. So there was periods where they were kind of just staring at each other, and it became a real technical chess match. Excuse me. When I think Joshua and his ability, he's more capable than that. But if he doesn't want to do it mentally, there's no one that's going to force him to do it. It doesn't matter who's coaching him. You know what I mean? You know, I think Joshua, outside of the jabs, though, I think Joshua wasn't bad defensive. I know a lot of people are talking about the head movement, and I was talking about it a little bit too. Okay, the head movement seems to be lacking as the fight went longer. He did get caught with a lot of jabs from Helenius, but he kind of gets busted up easily. You know, maybe by the third, fourth round, you started to see Joshua get busted up a little bit. Same thing with Jermaine Franklin. You know what I mean? But you know, at the end of the day, he did what he needed to do. You know, and I think he has the ability to beat Deontay Wilder. It's not that he doesn't have the ability. It's kind of how he chooses to fight. You know what I mean? He needs to be aggressive to beat Wilder. You know, we already know that Wilder's powerful and he can knock you out with one punch. You know, we already know that. But Wilder can be beaten if you attack him a certain way. You have to attack him. You know, and being that Joshua's the bigger man, you need to keep going. You know, it's not like Wilder has the greatest conditioning either. You know, I mean, it's not like he fights a full 12 rounds. He's going to always be dangerous. All right, but what I'm saying is Joshua, he's been up and down in careers when it comes to him. You know, we see fights where he's tired out dramatically, and then we see other fights where, you know, he went 12 rounds and looked fine. You know what I mean? But when you're fighting Deontay Wilder, you know, you have to come at him and you have to keep coming. You know, you can't land the right hand and back off. Jermaine Franklin took a lot of right hands from him, and Joshua wasn't able to put him down at all. He wasn't able to really, really hurt him bad. You know what I mean? Not bad. So with all that being said, you got to think he coming to Wilder. It's not going to just take one right hand. It didn't take one right hand from Fury. You know, Fury hurt him early in that rematch, and even in the third fight, he hurt him after a few rounds. But Fury kept coming, and he was beating him up and hitting him everywhere. You know, Joshua's gonna have to be a little bit more rugged. I don't think just being precise is gonna cut it. You know, I know he likes to connect with everything, and he doesn't like to waste punches, which is understandable because he doesn't want to burn himself out. But in order to win that fight, he's gonna have to be more aggressive with Deontay Wilder, more physical with Deontay Wilder. All right, have him backing up. You know, but I think as far as fundamentals and um, you know, being fundamentals and defense and just having more ammunition. Like as far as Joshua could do a lot more offensively than Wilder. It's just that Wilder is dangerous because of the power in his right hand. All right, so Wilder is limited, but effective and not fundamentally sound, but a lot of it is relying on his athleticism. You know what I mean? Defensively, he's not great neither. You know, he gets hit with jabs all the time. You know what I mean? Um, but Wilder is swift. You know, he's pretty quick on his feet. His defense, a big portion of his defense is his feet. You know, he leans back a lot, not really blocking shots and parrying shots with his glove that much. But a lot of it has to do with, you know, moving his head and, well, not even moving his head, but leaning back. But he has the reflexes to do it. You know what I mean? Of course, he doesn't miss everything. He misses some shots, but he gets hit a lot. You know, but the power has always been a neutralizer. He's been in fights where he was getting outboxed. He's been in fights where I thought he was losing on points, but it only takes one shot. You know what I mean? And he's able to do a lot more with that right hand. You know, I think in the earlier days when he was just a prospect, or when people started to really get to know him, maybe around when I started doing this boxing channel, and we're talking about a decade ago, I think at that point, he was a little bit in that point, and prior to that, he was a lot more limited with the right hand. You know what I'm saying? He was just throw the jab, use it as a blinder, and throw the right hand from the outside, you know, and get that full extension and knock guys out from the outside. Where now, I think the most dangerous, you know, part of his right hand is the short shots on the inside. Those are the ones, you know, those and the short counters on the inside in between your punches is what is the most dangerous. You know, the right hands, those right crosses right down the middle when you're coming in and when you're trying to throw a shot. Exactly what happened with Robert Helenius. It happened with Gerald Washington. It happened with Arthur Spilka. You know what I mean? That right hand from mid-range or close range is what is dangerous for Deontay Wilder. It only takes one. You know, Wilder doesn't have good combination. He's not a good combination puncher at all. He's a windmill puncher. We've seen it. We call him. I've seen people call him Windmill Wilder. You know what I mean? Because we saw what he's done in order to close out fights. He's not connecting with a lot of punches. It's that first punch he hurt you with, and then he just start throwing windmills, and he's hitting you all over the place. But it's that first punch. And I know people talk about Joshua's chin. I'm not one to believe that Joshua's chin is as bad as people make it seem. You know what I mean? Because Wilder has been hurt and down equally, if not more times in his career. You know what I mean? He's been hurt by fighters. He's been down. You know, I'm not saying he's chinny at all, because he's fighting big guys that have power. Ortiz has power. Fury has power. But at the end of the day, I think the chin thing is like calling him glass jaw. People, I've seen people go as far as saying he's the heavyweight Amir Khan. It's ridiculous. You know, he gets busted up by some of these fighters like Povetkin, or even almost everybody. But he's only been stopped once. He's lost to two fighters. He's only been stopped once, to Andy Ruiz, and he was able to avenge that loss. Usyk didn't stop him. You know, and he fought punchers in between those fights over the years, and He was able to get hurt and buzzed by some of them, but it's not like he's out here getting knocked down and getting bad, dangerous. Yeah, Klitschko knocked him out. Klitschko is a huge puncher. You know what I mean? So, look, I think for Wilder, he has many flaws, if not more. He probably has more flaws, but he's been able to get by on those flaws because of the one punch KO power, and that's all it really takes. You know what I mean? And I think for Deontay Wilder, Wilder needs to be light. I know he came heavy for the Fury trilogy, and for that fight, he needed to. You can still go back and forth with which is the better version of Wilder. Wilder was light in the first and second fights. He wanted to be focused on speed, but because of the pressure of Fury and him closing in on Wilder, it really didn't matter for Wilder, because Wilder just couldn't get away from a guy that moves as quickly as Fury does. Even though for a big man, Fury was able to close the gap easy on him, land right hands, get in and rough him up. Joshua hasn't been like that in a while. I don't know if Derek James can prepare him for that when they actually do fight. But Joshua would have to be, more aggressive. And Wilder, in my opinion, should be lighter. I think he should focus on speed and timing. You know what I mean? The power is still going to be there. He may not be as durable, but I think the best chances of Wilder winning is trying to get him out of there, catching him with the right hand and moving instead of focused on just being heavier so you can absorb more punches from Joshua. I think he should be going into this fight thinking offensively. And I think Joshua needs to be going into this fight the same way, because I can see the angle and the argument of Joshua just, going through the rounds and trying to box and win rounds and stuff and waiting for the perfect shot to hurt him. But it's very risky. I do not believe that Joshua could do it. And this is not a Joshua and Fury prediction, but I don't believe that Joshua is capable of doing what Tyson Fury was able to do. You know what I mean? I don't believe that. I don't think that he is overall as crafty as Fury. Fury comes in with a lot of confidence. He's not second guessing himself. He knows the assignment and he does it. He's just a better finisher. He's been the better finisher since, that rematch with Deontay Wilder. He's using his size the right way. He took a lot of right hands from Deontay Wilder in those second and third fights, and he was able to eat them and keep coming forward. And even when he got buzzed or he got dropped, he was still able to take the punches. I don't think Joshua is as chinny as people make it sound like he is, but I don't think he's nearly as durable as Tyson Fury. All right. So he has to take a different approach from Fury as far as, the way of him, like, getting to Wilder, you know what I mean? Because he can't do what Fury does. He's a different fighter. But I do believe the one thing in common that he would need to have in order to beat Wilder is being more aggressive. Being more aggressive than he was in his last couple of fights. All right? Not overthinking things. You know what I mean? So, I'm leaning towards Wilder for now. I think Wilder is going to catch him. That's not a fanboy pick. That's just the way I see it. You know what I mean? I do think Joshua has a chance, and I'll probably end up, when it comes to betting, I probably will hedge it. I think it's going to be a KO either way, because I do think AJ could hurt Wilder. And I brought up PTSD. You never know, Joshua might hit him with a right hand, and Wilder might start feeling like he's in a Fury fight again. Joshua does hit very hard still. You know what I mean? And Wilder defensively is not good neither. You know, he's not really that good neither. You know what I mean? So I think Joshua has a chance of winning. I'm looking to see. I'm expecting him to be the underdog, especially them coming off of two common opponents. They're both coming off of common opponents. I think the common opponents from the past really don't matter because a lot of those common opponents from back then is when they were both undefeated. You know what I mean? Speaking on that, I don't think the fight is too late. I don't think it's too late. I obviously think it's not as big as a fight as it once was. I think the best time for them to fight was when they were both undefeated. You know, I wish something worked out then. It should have been an undisputed fight at one point. Joshua held 3 titles. Excuse me. Wilder held 1. You know what I mean? And that fight should have happened at some point back then. You know, but it didn't. It is what it is. I think there was still even in the second opportunity when they fight should have happened. You know, and it just never did. All right, and those two have suffered defeats since then, and I think the hype of it is not as big as it was before. You know, before Errol Spence, before Terrence Crawford, we were going to war on here about this fight. We were, you know what I mean? Now it's like we're talking about it, but nobody's really battling it no more. You know, first of all, I hope it happens. Because I've still said over these years, this is still a top 5 fight for me. Obviously, it's not as big. It's just more like similar to Floyd and Manny Pacquiao. Whereas we still want it. It still should happen. But the timing is not as good as it once was. All right? Whereas in Spence and Crawford, I felt like the timing was good. You know, it could have happened a little earlier. But I don't think the wait was nearly as bad as this fight. You know, this fight we've been talking about for a long time. You know, we talking about it for a long time, you know, and I think when Joshua went through White and went through Parker, you know, and became unified and all that stuff, you know, the fight should have happened right after. But then all the mess happens with A side, B side, you know, percentages, you know, who's sending who, purses and emails and all that shit. Network issues, you know, all of that stuff. Manager saying this guy. It was draining, but it was good promo for the fight, just like Spence and Crawford was good promo. But now, if they really get it on and they just settle it, I don't think the buildup is as big as it once was. It's not going to stop me from watching the fight or possibly going to the fight, and I still love the fight. But it meant something a little bit earlier. But it still means something now. All right? And I'm going to close it out with this. With this generation of heavyweights. Let's close it out. While the guys are still fighting each other, you know, Usyk is still here. Fury, Wilder, and Joshua. These 4. Let's close it out. You know, let's get Fury and Usyk. Let's get Joshua and AJ. AJ and Wilder, you know, and if there's time and if there's room and these guys are still around looking good, let's get Fury and AJ for the British fans, you know what I mean? Shit, like if we have time to squeeze in a Wilder and Usyk fight, let's get it in. Let's get whatever we haven't gotten yet. No more rematches. Let's just get what we haven't got so we can leave it next to the next generation. You know, Klitschko's time was done. You know, Joshua came in, Fury came in, all these guys came in and did their thing. Let's get those guys. Let's get it on. It might be too late for some of these fights, but let's just get it anyway. The previous generations, a lot of fights happened late, but we still got them. We still paid for them. We still talk about them. We still enjoy them. But let's get this done so we can pave the way for the next generation of heavyweights. All right, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Please, again, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I will go live and talk. I just wanted to do a video first talking to you guys, giving you my points. I want to read the comments. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. All right, I definitely want to look forward to reading all of the comments and responding and going live and talking to you guys directly. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.